The driving force, if you will, behind this wonderful idea that the bishops came up with to consecrate the United States to the Sacred Heart of Jesus is really in observance of the semi-quincentennial of our country, the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So this is a quarter of a millennium of living in this wonderful democratic republic that we enjoy here in the United States, this great experiment, as it was called, in a new form of democracy. So there's a lot of excitement that we want to generate around the observance of this great anniversary for our country. And what better way to do that than to turn our country to the true King, and for our nation to be solemnly consecrated to Christ the King and to his most sacred heart. As patriotic Catholic citizens of this United States, and as the bishops, who are the chief shepherds of this local flock, we could think of no better way to celebrate this anniversary than to make this consecration, to put us all under the headship of Christ, under the kingship of Christ, but even more beautifully into the very heart of Christ, to let his sacred heart continue to pour out grace upon this nation. It's not meant to be just simply something nice and symbolic to do. The bishops really expect that this consecration will bear great fruit for our country, so that there will be a greater charity exercised throughout our country. I think we hope that in the heart of Christ, we will find once again that unity that seems to be slipping away from us so much in the very divisive culture that we find ourselves in today. That in the heart of Christ, we will find ourselves to be friends again, even with our political enemies, if you will, and those with whom we disagree. But that in the heart of Christ, we are one. As a people, we're one as a nation, and certainly we're one as a Catholic community within that. And that, justice will be more firmly secured for our nation, that equality that we still continue to strive for all peoples, and that virtue will flourish. This used to be a great tradition in our Catholic family, was to consecrate our families, to consecrate our homes to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And it was always often a very big part of the blessing of a new home, that at the conclusion of the ceremony of blessing of a new home would be the enthronement of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So to consecrate our families to the Sacred Heart, to consecrate the dwelling of our home, where we are the domestic church, to consecrate that to the Sacred Heart of Jesus by enthroning his image in our home, and to be the king and the ruler of our own home and family. And I especially think, with the Knights of Columbus, the Knights of this great and grand order, I think I would love to see husbands and fathers, knights, step up during this time of consecration and consecrate their homes. We want to experience the love and the mercy of God that has been poured out for us through the Sacred Heart of Jesus, for ourselves and for our loved ones and for our families, for sure. But it doesn't stop there. It must then move us to be the heart of Christ for others. Jesus clearly identifies himself with the poor throughout the Gospels, and especially in that incredible parable of the final judgment, where he tells us, whenever you did this, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, sheltering the homeless, visiting the sick or those in prison, whenever you did this for the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you did it for me. Jesus identifies with the poor, and his heart for them, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, poured out in love and mercy for the poor and the suffering. That must be how the church lives this consecration. That it isn't just for us in the comfortable, if you will, cozy community of the church, but it is meant for the world. It is meant for the church to be the heart of Christ for others. I often say that when we care for and minister to the poor, we see the face of Jesus in those who come to us in suffering and in need. So we see the face of Christ in them, but they must also see the face of Christ in us, and they must experience the heart of Christ for them. There's a grand connection between this consecration to the Sacred Heart, this devotion to the Sacred Heart, and the Church's care and preferential option for the poor and suffering in our world. We must never forget, even though in the world that we live in today, in a very secularized culture that we're in today, we should never forget that this nation was founded on religious values and principles. And there's just no denying that, and yes, there will be those who will try to explain that away in some way. But this country really was founded on those inalienable rights that we enjoy, the rights that we have, the dignity that every human being has, the dignity that every citizen of this country has, every person living here has, comes not from government. Dignity, human rights, are not those that are bestowed upon us by government, by other people. These inalienable rights come to us from God. And this country was founded on a very firm understanding of that the rights and the dignity of every human being do not come from government, but they come from God. This nation sought to enshrine that equal dignity, to enshrine those rights that we all enjoy as created in the image and likeness of God, to enshrine that in a constitution and in a form of government that would always protect and advance those rights and that dignity. In more recent time, there has been a forgetting of that. And on the part of some, even an effort perhaps to eliminate or to set aside that original understanding of our founding fathers. So I think this consecration to the Sacred Heart of Jesus is an opportunity for us to go back to basic principles, not just of faith, but really of the founding of this nation and the beliefs and the philosophy, if you will, upon which this nation was based. Everything flows from the heart of Christ. We should never forget that our faith, our religion, the practice of our faith, the living of our faith within the wider American culture, the religious liberties that we seek to preserve and promote for ourselves and for others, all of that flows from the heart of Christ. And if there's to be a spiritual revival, if there's supposed to be a spiritual renewal in this time as according to God's plan, it will flow from the heart of Christ. By consecrating the nation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, we are just disposing ourselves, we're disposing our country to the outpouring of grace that Jesus wants to give us, flowing from his Sacred Heart, which is the heart of mercy and love for the world. If there's to be a spiritual revival and renewal, which we all hope for, this consecration may very well be one of those catalysts that opens an outpouring, a flow of grace anew to be poured out upon this great land. To my brother knights in this great order, men, step up at this time. Take leadership in your homes, in your families. Be, by your baptism, the quote-unquote priest in your home, and really dedicate your family to the heart of Christ. Let this consecration of our nation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus be truly a profound spiritual renewal in your life, in the life of your family, in the life of your councils, and in the life of your parishes. Now is the time.